Let's keep the mega panel going with Amanda, James and Lisa. And we've got to talk about the relationship between China and Australia and the way that Anthony Albanese seems to be mishandling it. I said at the top, I think he's been kowtowing to China, trying to keep this naval confrontation and the damage done to Australian seamen right out of the news while he was looking to shake hands again with Xi Jinping. And here's what China's saying through its official spokesperson straight back in our face.
I hope the relevant parties will stop causing trouble at China's doorstep and work with China to jointly maintain the momentum of improvement and development of China-Australia relations.
James, this is so obvious what Albanese's done here. He suppressed this information because he didn't want to have to deal with this when he was meeting with the Chinese president and premier again in San Francisco. And then, of course, he hasn't fronted him over it.
Of course he hasn't. And now he's got a major problem because he's been weak on anti-Semitism. He had no plan to deal with dangerous detainees released into the community. Now we've got Australian sailors injured by the Chinese military, and he said nothing. Where is he? He's hiding under the table in the chairman's lounge, and I don't mean Chairman Xi. and I'm old enough to remember when we had a Prime Minister who talked about, what was it, Chris, shirt fronting Vladimir Putin, and everybody mocked him. Well, give me a shirt fronter over a handsome boy, as the Chinese mockingly called Albanese, any day of the week.
Give me someone who will shirt front Xi Jinping, absolutely. But instead, we've got this Prime Minister.
Well, we've raised it very clearly through all of the normal channels. But I can assure you that we raised these issues in the appropriate way.
Yeah, well, there you go, Amanda. You know, that issue you really wanted me to take up and with a bit of gusto and get some results. Well, I've done it through all the normal processes and channels, and don't worry, that's all been taken care of.
In other words, be quiet, be a mushroom, shut up and just take what we give you and be happy with it.
And the thing is,
well, it is, and they talk about we had positive conversations, we had this. Well, if it's so positive and if you really like it, then why don't you put a hot mic, why don't you actually have it there and have it direct and globally expressed, and the people of Australia can listen to what you're actually talking about, because all we get is, it was positive, we did what we needed to do, shut up.
I'll tell you what, having worked in foreign affairs, I was chief of staff to a foreign minister for many years, and Alexander Downer was no slouch as a foreign minister. This is garbage, him saying that he can't say what he discussed. He might not want to go into detail, but he can easily say that I raised this issue with the Chinese president. That is not going to create any diplomatic problems. You can talk about a topic being raised. In the meantime, let's just have a look at what Peter Dutton's been saying on this today.
Prime Minister is not prepared to stand up in our national interest. And if the Prime Minister didn't raise this issue with President Xi, he should be upfront and open and honest with the Australian public. At the moment, we're seeing what we got from the Prime Minister during the course of The Voice. That is, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth.
He's spot on there, Peter Dutton. He's found his line and length as an opposition leader, hasn't he, Lisa, your fellow Queenslander? He's just going, he's got elbow on the ropes.
Oh, he's just been handed one after the other in the past few weeks. But when it comes to China, the Prime Minister's just being schooled by China, and to this point he's just taking it. But my question is, what does it say to all of our defence personnel when you've got the Prime Minister of Australia who won't come out strong on any of this, and you've got silence at the moment as far as China's there saying, well, no, yes, settle down, be quiet, don't cause us trouble. Well, what does that say to all of the men and women who are out there putting their lives on the line, and to the sailor who was injured? Yeah,
I would have thought that the morale within our defence forces would be devastated by this, that while they've had a couple of sailors injured, their own Prime Minister hasn't raised it with China. And back in Beijing, they'd be laughing. We've done this to Australia, and the bloke didn't even raise it with me. Made sure it wasn't in the media and didn't raise it with me. Quite extraordinary stuff. Speaking of extraordinary stuff, we're going to talk about Optus and the fact, of course, they're looking for a new CEO now after their last two public relations disasters, after system failures in both cases. And there's talk about whether Gladys Berejiklian, the former New South Wales Premier, might get the job. Now, Amanda, you don't reckon that can happen?
I don't think it's the right fit. I mean, I'm a little concerned that if she does get the job, that the 13 LGAs in Western Sydney will get their Optus cut off for the sake of she doesn't want them to have access. So I think there's a lot of trauma across New South Wales of some decisions that were made and just in general of what happened. Plus also, I don't think she would want to be in the spotlight during a difficult time after being through a very difficult time.
I think it's a good job. Now, I'm firmly in the Gladys Berejiklian camp, not in terms of this job, but James, I reckon the findings against her were rubbish. She reckons that too. She's challenged them in court.
Yeah.
But the trouble with this whole ICAC process is the smear saw her give up her political career. Mm-hmm. So she's gone out now, she's trying to get a commercial career back. And because the smear still hangs over her, the process is dragged out so long, it's going to nobble her commercial career. So she keeps getting punished for something that so far is not proved at all.
Yeah, and it's completely unfair. But as you say, she's not the right person to take this job at this time for 3 reasons. Number one, she was part of the stuff up in the communications. She's an executive at Optus and she went missing when this whole thing went down. Number two, as you say, she's a divisive figure. There's still this thing hanging over her head. And number three, after the evidence from ICAC, I'm not sure Gladys wants to be focusing on telephone calls right now.
Boom, boom. Spot on, James. On that note, thanks so much to our mega panel, James McPherson, Lisa Goodard. We'll see you back at 10 o'clock, James. Lisa Goodard in Perth and Amanda Rose here in the studio.